Hello and welcome to ThePrint. I am Shubham Batra, Senior Associate Editor at ThePrint. And with me today is somebody who's responsible for ensuring that the government has enough money to spend in or outside budget. Revenue Secretary Tarun Bajaj, welcome sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So many have been calling tax targets conservative. I won't get into the conservatism, but why has there been such a baseline scenario on tax targets that you've kept?
In the sense?
In the sense that when one looks at the tax targets, the sense one gets is that this is the bare minimum that the government will achieve this year. But a more realistic picture would have been if it was more. I mean, I'm not getting into the calculations because obviously you've gone through it again and again, and I've also.
Shubham, I think the narrative is just turning 180 degrees. Till 2 years ago, if we had said that we'll achieve a 14% increase in our revenues, some people may have questioned it. Even this time, one of your colleague journalists has questioned it, saying that you've been too ambitious. And I think I'll just give you one aspect which I have not spoken is that this current year, the stock market has done very well. So we anticipate that we have got a very good harvest from capital gains. Now with the Fed increasing the rates and the effects of that, we really don't know how the market is going to play up the next year. So those 50, 60, 70,000 crores which we might have got as per our estimates, not even estimates, it's guesstimates at the moment, we may get, we may not get. So apart from that, as I've already said, we have estimated our growth at 14% if you leave out the excise duty. So I think it is a challenging task. Also, let me say this, that nobody could have predicted in February of last year that we will increase our tax revenues by 3 lakh crores from BE to RE.
Yes.
If we had shown this very figure in the BE of last year, again, you would have laughed at us and told us that we are back to our old game of showing more revenues to show less fiscal deficit. So even if we are conservative, I hope your words come out to be true and we collect more revenue. If we collect more revenue, on the way while we are carrying out this journey, we realize that there are some expenses which come up all of a sudden. Like this 3 lakh crores, you see, in spite of the fact that we had declared we'll have a fiscal deficit of 6.8, we have gone to 6.9 in spite of this extra 3 lakhs coming to us, which means a lot of expenditure came. So even if we are able to collect some 30, 40, 50, I don't know, nobody has so far given us as to how much more will we collect. If we collect that, I'm sure on the way, on our journey, we'll have some surprises on the expenditure side and I'll take care of that.
As there are every year, sir. So the trend on the taxes in the last 2-3 years has been that the indirect portion of indirect taxes is now becoming either equal to or more than direct taxes. Now, economically, the argument is that indirect taxes are regressive. They create inequality affecting the poor. By when do you see this trend reversing?
To be very frank with you, I would say that this year we should be collecting more direct taxes than indirect taxes.
Okay.
And in the next year also, we should follow the same route. And what you have said about direct and indirect taxes, that indirect taxes are regressive and affect the poor more than the rich, is absolutely true. But you know what happened was that in the COVID year, the direct taxes took a big hit.
True.
Because if people didn't make profits, they never paid taxes, naturally so. But the consumption went down a bit, but we were able to pick up the consumption later in the latter part of the year. So the indirect taxes came up. And then, as all of you know, and I have no reason not to remind you that we increased the excise duty in May 2020. So we increased it some bit. So we naturally got a lot of money through the excise duty route. And this year, since the excise duty has been reduced by 10 rupees and 5 rupees, and customs duty has also been reduced on edible oils and pulses, so we should see a decrease in those areas, while the GST has started doing better than what it was doing, so we'll see more. But I'm sure this year, the way we are going ahead, the direct taxes will be more. Next year also, there'll be more.
I was going through the conference, post-budget conference, and you'd given some reasons on your discussions with the global bond indices on, the entire proposal of listing government bonds on global bond indices. My question is simple, sir. By when can we expect this to take place? Maybe next financial year, next to next, because these discussions, I know, don't end in a day or two. They obviously take over a period of time, but what do you hope? Can FY23 see listing of government bonds on global bond indices?
I would say the listing of securities in the global bond indexes is a subject matter of the Department of Economic Affairs and the RBI. So they have to steer it. I'm just one of those gatekeepers on the tax front, so I have to settle that issue. On the tax front, what I'll say is that we are not negotiating this particular aspect in the OECD. We are discussing the international taxation, the BEPS as we call it. So in that, one of the portions that we want to have a discussion with the world community is also on capital gains tax, the right, who has the right and what is the minimum rate at which this should be taxed. So it is in that context that I had given that answer. And those discussions, my own presumption is because we also have to have the pillar 1 and pillar 2 to be worked out. So my presumption is that in about a year's time we should have that, and we should have more clarity by the time we come up with the budget of next year.
Okay. Have we completely buried the skeletons of retrospective taxation? And by that I mean, have we now paid all companies, and is the matter now completely closed?
I'm very happy that you asked this question. Nobody had asked me this question, and I was like a student who's prepared one answer. I was waiting for this question. I would say that we are more or less there. So there are only 3 or 4 companies to whom we have to pay back the money. Kane being the
biggest one.
Biggest one. So Kane, we have issued Form 4, which is the last bit that we had to do. We have done all the checkings of. They have withdrawn all the cases in all jurisdictions, so we have done an evaluation of that, and we have confirmed to them. Now the only thing that remains is the refund, which should happen in days. Okay. So let me add this, that there are many others which have been closed, but since the money didn't have to go in them, so they didn't create any noise. But by this month, or maybe one odd may be left, because Vodafone was still to get Form 3 as I reviewed it about a couple of days ago. We should close this whole matter in the next 15 days to 30 days.
Great, sir. How has the response been to the new income tax regime since its inception? From April 1, 2020, it was implemented as an optional regime. Is there any data, sir, to support the argument that it has done well, or if otherwise?
You're talking of the individuals?
Individuals, sir.
On the tax return. We actually, unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, the returns have come till 31st December, and late returns are still being filed. And normally 1 crore returns are filed late every year. So we expect the same numbers to come. So we have not been able to analyze the data. So it will be difficult for me to answer your question. But on a simple analysis, that I would not expect anybody to be paying more taxes when he has got an option of paying less taxes in a different regime. So my answer to that is people with 8 to 9 lakhs of income would definitely not come in the new regime. It's only people with higher income who would come in the new regime. So a majority of the assessees will continue to be in the old regime. Let us see how much of assessable amount has come into the new regime. That may be quite a sum, but we'll get to know that in a couple of months.
Maybe by the end of the year, March 31st would be the right time to ask you this question. True, sir. I'll shift the focus slightly now to, sir, virtual digital assets. On the announcement on capital gains tax on the income, on any transfer of virtual digital assets, there's a 30% CGT that you've levied. The government has said that tax on these assets does not legitimize them. Can you elaborate on that, sir?
I would say legitimizing it, whether there are 2 aspects. One, whether it is legit or illegitimate, whether it is regulated or unregulated. So I can say that it is definitely unregulated. We have not come up with a regulatory regime. Illegal and legal also, I would stick my neck out by saying that nobody has said it is illegal. That is why so many exchanges are running before our eyes. Otherwise, by this time, our agencies would have reached their premises.
True.
So, and it is not strange, because in this country there would be many, many activities that are legal but unregulated. but at the same time they are taxable. In this case, what we realized once we analyzed the data by interacting with a few so-called exchanges, that people were actually, they also didn't know naturally how to pay taxes on that. Even people who were paying taxes, some were showing it as capital gains. Then there were others who were doing derivatives and doing a number of deals per day. They were showing it as business income. And there are still others who are showing as other sources who are doing one odd deal. So we wanted to bring certainty to it without waiting for its regulation. And as I said, even if the government decides not to regulate it and these activities continue, they are taxable because people are making money. So we have brought certainty as to how it will be taxed. And using your media, I would like to say that it is taxed at 30% with applicable surcharge, no set off of losses, no carry forward of losses, with a tax deduction at source of 1%.
Those will be levied on the transactions.
Yes.
So how much
on the value of the transaction.
On the value of the transaction. So how much are we expecting to garner from levying this tax?
I have not done any calculation, though I'm told the CBDT chairman has been saying to the media that we'll collect a lot of taxes. I hope he's right.
Right.
Because the more taxes come, we love it. But we haven't done a calculation. But let us see how people react to this new regime. There would be some people, I'm sure, who would be reluctant now to go to this market, while others would feel that, okay, if the government is taxing it, okay, now I can go to this market and play around. So let us see. It will depend on the number of transactions, the money that is made. For example, I'll tell you on the capital gains tax on the debt and equity, or in the other property also, we got less than 10,000 crores in the last year, and this year we should be getting about 50-60,000 crores. So this is something which will vary depending on the transactions and how people play up.
And what about the implementation of this? So the excise gets implemented immediately, and one more. This will be implemented from April 1st.
This regime will be applicable from 1st of April, but it doesn't mean that there are no taxes till 1st of April. It is taxable.
It's taxable even today.
It's taxable even today. It is not that it is a tax-free item that is going on. It is taxable today. But then you will come to me with your return, and I'm the assessing officer, so we will decide whether you've done it right or not. So this will bring certainty, and my people, assessing officers, will also know how to assess this item.
So I'm just going to shift the focus a bit to on GST on these virtual digital assets. How are they going to play out?
On the GST, my understanding is that on the service part of it, it will be levied. But I would not like to answer that in greater detail. I would leave it to the experts to explain.
Okay.
I don't know whether there's any confusion on the GST. If there is one, I would ask my officers also to clarify.
So next question on GST that I would have is that, regarding the states. The states have been demanding an extension of the GST compensation period beyond June 2022. Is the centre considering this demand?
I would like to say that right now the GST compensation cess, as per the law, is payable till 30th of June 2022. But because of COVID, we were not able to collect enough cess. So what we have taken loan of 1,10,000 in first year, 1,59,000 in the second year. So that comes to 2,69,000. And even after collection of cess for the current year, some areas of 50,000 or thereabouts would be left. Then next year also for 5 months we have to pay, which will be about 1 lakh crores. So what I want to drive at is that the cess that would be collected in 22, 23, 23, 24, 24, 25, up to March of 2026, the cess is actually been reserved for repayment of this liability, for payment of interest and payment of areas. So even if a decision is taken to extend it, but we have to find money how to pay it. So there is no money to pay it. So this presentation has been made to the GST Council, and the GST Council will now have to see what it does about it, because there is no compulsion, or there is nothing in the legislation which says that the central government has to pay this compensation through the Consolidated Fund of India. It has to come to the compensation cess. And the compensation cess is booked till March 2026. So where is the money to pay this?
To pay this. So my second last question is on GST slab rationalization. It's been on agenda for a while. What is your view on the ideal number of slabs for GST, what it should have, and when would be the matter taken up for the consideration of the GST Council?
I think this is something which is also commented by a lot of economists and a lot of commentators, that there are so many slabs of GST and they should be brought down. When you come to brass tacks, when you start looking at commodities and the slabs, I would say there are only 3 slabs, 5, 12 and 18. 28 has about 28 or 29 items. There were a large number of items, they have been brought down to 28, 29. Then there are some items which are at 0, 1 or 3, for example, gold. Now, people who say that there has to be one rate, my question to them is that I give you a list of commodities, please tell me, should they fall in this, in one number or 2 numbers? Even if it has to fall in 2 numbers, please tell me. So, what I would say is you should leave out these outliers in the sense which are in 0 or 28. Otherwise, there are just 3 slabs today. Now, these 3 slabs should be 2 slabs, or these 3 slabs, whether the commodity should be in 5 or 12 or 18, is something which the Bombay committee is looking into it. We'll await their recommendations, and I think after that GST Council would discuss it. So if it happens in the month of February or March, we'll discuss it in the March GST Council. If it doesn't happen, then we'll have to postpone it to the first quarter of the next financial year. But I think they're quite aware of all the issues. They are being assisted by a fitment committee and other officers. So I think they'll take a conscious decision, and then the GST Council will apply its wisdom of what is to be done.
And even if you look at the rationale, you've already said that if you look at the average GST rate, that's much lesser than the RNR.
Yes, thanks for reminding me that it is 15.3 RNR and what we are charging now is 11.6. So obviously the revenues that we'll generate would be lower. You haven't asked me this, but let me say this, that in spite of not tinkering with the rates too much, we have been able to increase the revenues. So one thing which has happened is obviously because of the economy doing well, we have been able to do it. And the other reason is that we have also ensured better compliances, we've used technology, we've used regulations, we've used policy to improve it.
So my very last question is, many have said that the government should start moving to include ATF and petroleum within GST. Some had said that states alone were an impediment. What do you think is the right time? Economically, when should it be included?
Look, it's very easy for us to say to include it, and I think the people who say to include it are also not wrong, because the cascading effect goes away and it helps the economy in that sense. But today, especially after COVID, the states also feel that they are very limited leeway on taxation in their states. So they have actually given up a lot of taxation rights to the council. Though during the COVID, the center and the states worked together and the borrowing limits were raised, we raised our debt. But nevertheless, there is that feeling. And the taxation rates on petroleum products are much higher than the slabs that we have in the GST rates. So I think we will take some time. The states will have to be ready to take a decision on that. Maybe we'll have to wait for the COVID to go away, normalcy to come back to take a decision on that. I don't think this is the right time to do it.
All right, sir, that's all the questions we had for you today for this interaction. Many congratulations on the budget, and thank you for joining us at Print.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure interacting with you.
Always, sir.